Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is the third pruning video that I've made here in the late spring. All of my early flowering shrubs needed a little bit of work. A few trees here and there. We're going to see a tree in this video. Camellia, some big azaleas that are behind me, Shasta viburnum that needs some control. So you can go back and watch those other two videos if you want to see other types of pruning, some tree work, shrub work, that kind of thing. What I haven't shown so far is something that really just needs a big time haircut. So I've got some gas pruning shears. Sometimes, you know, on a holly or an azalea or something that's just overgrown, sometimes it's just good to take some full control over it. So that's what I'm going to do with these azaleas that are in front of the house. These are not going to be here forever. The plan is to actually have a front porch all the way across the front of this house. There's a little planter down here that's made out of cinder block that would come out at that point. And the plants that are right here where I'm standing would actually become the foundation plants for the house. In the meantime, 2 years ago, I cut these azaleas just like I'm about to do, and then I let them grow for a couple years so that they could be more free-formed. So they're gonna look like little meatballs after I get done with them today, but then I'm just gonna leave them alone, you know, up until the point where either this porch goes in or they need it again in a couple years. So not something I'm doing all the time to keep them as little meatballs. These are just spring flowering azaleas. These are old varieties. They're just gonna bloom, you know, in April, and then they're done for the season. These types of azaleas, or any type of azalea, you prune it right after it blooms or shortly thereafter, so it has time to regenerate some growth, set flower buds for next spring. So I'm just going to wear some eye protection, crank up the gas head shears, and kind of do a butcher job on these. Okay, so I wasn't kidding when I said it was a butcher job. So I'm just trying to get these down, get them back uniform, get some control to them. You think I hurt them? I didn't hurt them at all. They'll flush back out of that so quickly. I actually, anytime I prune something hard back like this, this material I'll actually just throw right under the plants. If they're too big of pieces, I'll cut them down a bit, but I just let them mulch themselves, and that stuff will break down, keep the weeds from coming up through them. In about 3 weeks, if you're following along with the channel, they'll already be covered back up. Some won't look so thin anymore. It'll happen very, very quickly. I've got one more big one to do over there that's gotten really quite tall, and two over there. Nothing really to see on it. It's just exactly the same thing. It's a little, again, you know, the other pruning that I've doing in these videos is a little more light-handed. That's what we'll call it. All right, back to some delicate pruning. That's the last I'll need the gas pruners in this series of videos. I could have used the head shears, of course, but you know, power, right? Okay, so this is a Shasta viburnum, and it has this kind of layered look to it, which I really like, and I don't really want to get rid of that. But on this 0.19 acre lot where I'm trying to have lots and lots of varieties, it's just going to continue to get wider and wider and wider and bigger and bigger and bigger. So I have to apply some control to the Shasta viburnum. Occasionally, this was one that bloomed earlier in the spring. And also down here below, I've got some limbs that are almost right on the ground. And for me, that's good planting space under there. You see that? Of course, there's my neighbor's maple seed right there, the gift that gives constantly. I'm going to come back under here and cut that limb completely out, and you see almost immediately found a new place for a plant, so that's cool. And again, I'm going to come under here and do this on any of these super low horizontal branches. Look, I can actually get under this thing now. Okay, and I got to go all the way around this thing to do this. It's going to change the look of it a little, but again, I want to be able to use the space that's underneath it, because I just have such limited planting space here. Here's one that's rooted in the ground. This is another thing about propagation. Everybody talks about me propagating these plants as I'm taking cuttings. This one has rooted in to the ground. You can take a limb like this and throw some mulch over top of it, pin it down, and it'll root in like this. So, and this, we could take, we could cut this one off and put it in a container, and we've got one plant. We could take this and cut it right about here, and we have a second plant. Maybe I'll cut this down to about here, and then right here we have a third plant, possibly even a fourth plant we could get off of that. So that's one way to pretty effectively root plants without needing any kind of sophisticated system to do it. I think I got one more big one there on the other side. I'm gonna have to go around to get. I've had a rabbit in this area of the landscape doing some damage, and I have a feeling that this has offered him a lot of shelter. So I'm also hoping to kind of cure that issue as well in this pruning. I got one more, it looks like, right there. And I think that's it. Okay, so it's all limbed up now. And that really, I mean, it completely changed the look of it, I realize. But things can now be tucked underneath it. This epimedium will run on the ground a bit and fill that in. Here's what I'm talking about, where this thing just kind of grows in layers. You'll have one come like this, and it'll weed down. That's how those ended up, you know, all the way on the ground down there. And then another layer comes up and out. And once it gets enough weight on it, it'll lean all the way down almost. And so it has this layered look to it that I don't want to change. Limbing this thing up has made all the difference. When you start on something like this and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with it, once I cut these bottom limbs off of it, I realize now that I don't need to control the size quite as much as I thought I did, because I gained so much by just lifting it up just a bit. And so what I'm going to do is I want to keep this layered look, and I'm going to just come back on these stems and cut them right at a spot where I know they'll branch out from. And you'll hardly be able to tell in a week or two that I've pruned this. But I'm going to go all the way around. I realize sometimes I'm hard to follow, because I used to get paid. I used to get paid to do this kind of stuff, and you know, I'm always in a hurry to have it done. So I know I'm a little quick for the camera sometimes. But all I'm doing is I'm going to lighten the load on every one of these. I don't want to change the look of it. So ultimately, I'm just going to take maybe, I don't know what that is, maybe close to 2 feet, 20 inches of growth off of it, something like that, off of every one of these, leaving side branches as I go, because I know that's where it will come out from. And we can buzz through this thing pretty darn quickly doing that. And I know when it comes back out from what I'm doing right now, it will look basically roughly the same as it does right now, but it just it'll come back out to about the same size it is before I started cutting it today, which is kind of what I want by the end of the season, so that when it blooms next spring, it's about the same size as it is today while I'm cutting it. So about the same amount. This one is way overhanging. I got one here that's really gone all in, and it's covering up a Clayera that I've got behind it. This Clayera is meant to be a big evergreen piece back here behind this, and so I definitely want to keep it off of it completely, because I want it to just really fill this whole space in, so I'm not seeing way up the road like we are right now. And so that's it. I'm just going to keep following the circle around, cutting about the same length off of every branch. This vertical growth on it, I might come and just go ahead and get rid of him. I think this is actually a sport. Yeah, it is. This has come all the way from the ground, and we're going to eliminate that one completely. I'll get it cut to the ground a little bit more after we're done here. But you see that vertical piece? It's just completely different than the rest of the plant. So let's definitely eliminate that. And I'll come around to the front, trying not to crush things. Let's see. If you see something in a plant that's like a completely different kind of growth, it might be a different color, might be a different growth habit, might be whatever, it's probably good to get rid of that, unless you think it's interesting, and then you can send me a photo and I'll tell you if you got a if you've got a potential new variety, we can talk about it. But for the most part, when I see something like that, it was clearly very different than the rest of the plant. It's just this root sucker that's come all the way up to the top. And I think we have 2 more of those. Right here is another one. You see this? This is just a piece that's all the way from the bottom down there somewhere. So we're going to track him down way into the plant and cut that vertical stem off. Okay, I'll get all this cleaned up afterwards. Same thing with him, just like that. And then again, it's good to stand back occasionally and take a look at what you're doing. Sometimes if you go too far, guess what? Doesn't matter. It grows right back. There's no mistake to be made here, really. If I cut too much off of one side, I'll cut the other side more the next year. No big deal. Another one of these vertical branches, we'll get rid of that. Another vertical branch, hadn't gotten up quite as high yet, but it's definitely on its way. I think I'll get rid of a little more of that one. Okay. So what do you think over there, Steph? I'm keeping the same layered look. Okay, all right, good, for the most part. Huh? What's that? Yeah, it needed it bad. It was time. Okay, all right, let me stand back and take a look at that. We definitely want to make sure we're taking off the end of every branch when we're doing this, because if I leave one like this right here, it's just going to keep growing outward, and it's really going to be way outside of the plant pretty soon. So once you start doing this, you're pretty much committed to slowing the growth down on all of them. Okay, standing back, you guys can see what we can see here, which is I've got, still got too much going on in this general direction. So I'll come back in here and cut these a bit harder. Like I said, it will seem as though I've really changed the form of this, but by cutting everything basically the same amount, it'll come back out exactly the same as it was before. So there we go. I think I'm going to call that done. I haven't changed the layered look on it, or the layering that's on it, and every one of these ends will give me two additional branches or so that will come out here. And I've limbed it up. I've got new planting places. Here's an October Magic orchid, camellia. This is a Camellia sasanqua. It wouldn't matter if it's a sasanqua or japonica. This is an okay time to prune them. I'm getting, these actually set buds on a new growth as it hardens off for the fall. So the sooner the better. If you have any general pruning to do on these, I'm actually not going to do any general pruning down below. I'm just going to take off a couple of these crazy pieces that are getting out ahead of the plant all the way down into it. I'm not even, I'm just removing some height. You can't even tell I just made that cut because I cut down in the interior of it. Again, there's two more of these, and if we follow them down into the plant, I can cut them way down there, and you can't really tell that it happened if you didn't know it was there a minute ago. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one, just like that, and that's basically going to leave me. I got one more here that I'd like to get under control, and maybe this one right here. And maybe this one. I lied. Okay, there you go. And that's all I want to do on this. And that was only 5 cuts, but I've gotten it back under control. I got it in this weeping habit that I want it to look like. It might be in a little more shade than it wants to be in. Camellia sasanquas can take a little more sun. This one doesn't get any sun on it until pretty late in the morning, actually, before it's in any sun. And it is, I think it's just stretching a little bit more than it would. No big deal. I made 5 cuts, it's done. This is an autumn lilac encore azalea. It really doesn't need any pruning on it, but I thought I'd give you a look at how I would have pruned an azalea that I was just, you know, trying to get back into shape instead of like the ones I butchered out there on the front foundation. You'll get this kind of growth on azaleas where, you know, a big limb will come up above all the rest of the plant. If you'll take something like that, you can just cut it all the way down in the plant, and it's like it wasn't even there. You've got another layer of foliage right underneath it, and so you could do that again. I didn't really need to prune this one, but I'm just showing you how I would prune a, you know, slightly larger one. I'll just take each of these pieces that are sticking up above everything else, just like that. This would be done after their spring flowering, which obviously has taken place already, and that's how I would do this and still have it look like a full plant. I mean, you won't really be able to tell that I've done any pruning on it because I chased the limbs way back into the center, you know, way back into the plant, like that. Of course, you got to find a bonus ligustrum that has come up in the middle of it while I'm pruning them. One of the things, this is the path here, and so any branch that I have heading toward this path, I might as well go ahead and remove it. But look at that. Does it even look like I pruned it? And it was this tall just a second ago. Now it's a much fuller plant, a lot more light getting into the interior of it. So it should flush out nicely and bloom here again later in the summer. Last up for this video is my serviceberry tree in the front garden. It's got a couple suckers coming up from the bottom. I've just let them grow because I knew I was anticipating doing some pruning videos and I wanted to show it off. There's just a couple of low branches that definitely need to come off. I would have cut these off immediately if I wasn't planning on showing it off to you guys. If you're getting lateral branches on a tree that's in the future, they're definitely gonna come off, I'd go ahead and take them off. The first video I did, I have a Tokyo Tower Chiananthus in the back garden, and I didn't take a couple of branches off. It was just gonna make the thing terribly naked, so I didn't do it this year. But most of the time, that's what I would do. What I want to do, this is a rose family plant, and rose family plants just get every problem in the world, and you know, the leaf spot problems and fungal problems on the you know, on the fruit itself, and we want to make sure we keep the canopy open on these. We want to make sure there's no branches that are going to be rubbing one another in the future. Unfortunately, this tree is much taller than it can possibly support, and so I've got it staked up. I've got to get another tie on it right there. I've got a branch that's actually rubbing that thing. I need to get another tie on it right up here. This one just broke off recently. And I gotta, like I say, I gotta get some height out of it because I really need to thicken the caliper up on this tree before I let it get, you know, 15 feet tall or, you know, whatever it's going. And so this is gonna look really mean. I considered cutting it up here like this above those branches just for the video. Just for the video's sake, so it didn't look like I was butchering the tree. And then I was like, well, you know, ultimately I'm going to cut it off, so I might as well show them. I'm going to just come down here just above one of these lateral branches. I'll get more vertical growth from that spot later, but I took a lot of height out of it right then. I'm going to do that on every one of these. I'm going to come up above a side branch like that and just cut them. And get them all the same size. I'm hoping to thicken up the caliper on this tree. I've got some interior branching. If you have branches that are heading right up through the middle of the tree, you might as well go ahead and take that out. You see where I'm pulling that out of, up in here, is right up in the middle of everything. Got another one right here. It's up into that other limb. And again, this is gonna look like I've absolutely butchered this tree when I'm done with it, but I promise you, ultimately, it's gonna be happier. It's gonna be healthier. Gonna do that, and then we're gonna bring this one way down and do that. And we got 2 more to do the same thing on. Sometimes you gotta hold them back to let the trunk catch up. A lot of times what goes on in, you know, when we're growing trees in a nursery, we're growing them super close together, and so they're racing one another. So you get to take it to sell and say, look, I got an 8-foot tree for sale. but it has a caliper this big around on it because it was in a race with the other ones for sunlight as fast as it could grow. And it really needs to be slowed down. So one more up here. And again, what's gonna happen now, here's another branch heading to the middle. Any branch that I see, this little tiny branch right here is coming at a 45 right back through the middle of the tree. I'm gonna take that off. This one, same thing, comes back through here. When you cut the top of something like that, all kinds of new growth is gonna happen in here. So I'm gonna have to come back in here and open it up again next year for sure. I may even get some additional suckering down at the bottom because I've a couple more side branches here I'm gonna cut. So I'll have no branch below here. And these are going up at a slight angle. I've slowed the top down. Got one weird branch up here that I'm gonna cut off right there. And right there, and right there. Okay, I'm sure it looks like I've butchered this tree, but it's something that really, really needed to happen. And now I can get this thickened up. Next year, if you're following along with the channel, once this is flushed back out again, next year I'll have some additional work to do on it because again, it's gonna force some growth in here in the middle. And then I'll figure out which ones I wanna go up as they're coming out next spring. I love pruning plants like I did this azalea where you really can't tell I pruned it and it looks, you know, and it looks like this when you're done with it. But sometimes, you know, you have to do something like I just did to that serviceberry tree. I hated to do that, but it can't be 15 feet tall with an 1.25 inch caliper or something like that. I'll never be able to unstake it if I don't slow it down, let it thicken up some. When the branches come out on it now, I'm gonna have to do a little bit of work going forward. I'll show you guys that as it goes. As I get more pruning to do out here, I'll put up additional pruning videos this year. I hadn't had to do any pruning, like I've said in all 3 of these videos up until now, because the plants have been so small and I planted everything small on purpose because I like to watch them grow. And I like to fiddle around with them. You know, I can grow plants, you know, almost on my terms, like I talked about in the first tree-formed hydrangea paniculata that was in the first video. So thank you guys for following along. Again, there'll be lots more maintenance, and you know, this project has been all about installing it for 2 years. Now it'll be more about maintaining it. Thanks for watching.